after the recent top 10 video I did a couple of weeks ago, where I picked my top 10 favourite horror films of the decade so far, I thought I would do something similar, and I would do a similar video that focused on my top 10 favourite action films of this decade so far, basically since 2020. And when I looked into it, there have been an awful lot of very good action films released since 2020. So this list focuses on what I believe certainly are my favourites. I'm not necessarily saying they're the best, but these are the ones that I probably got the most enjoyment from. As always, guys, I would love to hear in the comment section what your favourite action films of the decade so far, and of course I thank you very much for joining me for this list.
Santa, are you there? Daddy said you were very busy tonight.
Well, I want to talk about a couple of honourable mentions first, because as I said, there is quite a lot of good action films that have been released since 2020, and the first one I want to give a little bit of a mention to is Violent Night. A very good festive action film with David Harbour playing Santa Claus, a burnt out, disinterested Santa Claus who on this fateful Christmas Eve has to save a family from a bunch of terrorists, kind of thing, really. It's a weird concept, but it works really well with a lot of fun and inventive action sequences in the film.
Now, a bunch of assholes try to kill me over and over again. But no matter how hard I fight, I die. Every single day.
The next honourable mention that I want to talk about is Boss Level. This is a film that came out a couple of years ago. It stars Frank Grillo and directed by Joe Carnahan. It's a Groundhog Day type concept film where a guy just keeps dying every single day, and he's got to basically figure out how to get through the day without being killed by a bunch of different hitmen. It's really well made. I think a very underrated director and an underrated action film. Great action set pieces and very well made film indeed.
3, 2, 1. In 11 months' time, all human beings in the future will be wiped from the face of the earth. Unless you help us.
Right, coming in at number 10 on the list is The Tomorrow War. This was an Amazon Prime exclusive and it starred Chris Pratt. Now essentially this is a science fiction film, but it's also an action film, which is why I've put it on the list, and it focuses on there's like a future war many years in the future, and they come back to the past to ask the people from the present to go into the future to fight this alien threat. Really good action, some really inventive creatures that they've got to fight, and Chris Pratt is on form as well. I really quite enjoyed this one.
I'm done, Mike. I'm retiring. Uh-oh, here we go again. You want your legacy to be muscle shirts and body counts?
Look at this mess. It's carnage.
I didn't do all this.
You didn't shoot anybody?
Well, come on, Cap. You know I shot some people.
Yeah.
Coming in at number 9 on the list is Bad Boys for Life. Now, who expected this to be good? I certainly didn't. Now, I'm a big fan of the Bad Boys films, and I know Will Smith is about as popular as a fart in a spacesuit still in Hollywood, but as a third Bad Boys film, I thought this absolutely delivered. The chemistry was still there. It felt like they were really playing for stakes in this one, in the sense of, you know, Will Smith's character they tried to kill him, and like the lieutenant being killed. I mean, it had a lot going for it, this film, and I found it really entertaining, funny when it needed to be, and the action set pieces really delivered as well. So this was a real surprise for me, Bad Boys for Life, and I believe they are going to make another one. I hope they do, because I will very much look forward to it.
He was a Finnish commando. He lost his home and his family in the war. He became a one-man death squad.
Now, coming in at number 8 on the list is Sisu. The brutal action flick that came out, I think, earlier this year, I believe it was, wasn't it? And it was one of those films that kind of came out of nowhere, and everybody kind of stumbled across it, and then it started getting more and more people talking about it, and people started reviewing it on YouTube and stuff like that, and then it really started to come to prominence. And a really fun action film set during the Second World War. It's kind of different, it feels original, it feels gritty and fresh, with cartoonish, almost over the top kills in the film. A very, very different action film, and quite refreshing. Not to everybody's taste, strangely enough. I have seen some people that actually not that keen on it. I thought it was really fun, and I'm always one that's looking for originality in movies, and it does feel different. It's not got your normal chiseled, handsome leading man in the role. It just stands out as being something a bit different. So check it out if you haven't seen it.
You stab me? We'll ruin your life the way you ruin mine. Dude, I don't even know you.
Now, coming in at number 7 on the list is one of the funniest experiences in regards to an action film I've seen for quite a few years. This one is just a real joy, really, to watch. It's a lot of fun. Brad Pitt in the leading role, who just oozes class in this type of role. It's got an ensemble cast. Everybody delivers. It's funny, it's original, it's creative, it's colourful, it's over the top. It's everything you want from an action film. When I initially started watching it, I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to like this. It feels a little bit too stylistic. It feels like they're trying to copy other stuff, but no, it's got its own identity, and it's a really fun time, and an action film that I really enjoy, and I've seen a few times now since it came out.
9 seconds. Do I look like a killer?
Coming in at number 6 on the list is The Equalizer 3, one of the most recent on this list. I'm a huge fan of the Equalizer films. I go as far back as remembering the TV show in the 80s with Edward Woodward. But I think the way they've handled its transition to the big screen, Anton Fuqua and Denzel Washington have just delivered every single time, and each film feels consistent. Each film feels like it's got its own identity, and the third one as well, with it being set in Italy, it's got a different feel, a different flavour, and Denzel Washington just absolutely delivers once again as this character. It just nails it. The brutality of the kills, the moral dilemma that he has to kind of deal with. I mean, it's just it gives the character so much personality, and it's just, number one, it's a great action film, but number two, it's superbly acted as well. Definitely not only one of my favourite action films of this decade, but one of my favourite definite films of this year.
There's a long dormant piece of me that so very badly wants out. What are you still doing here, old man? I'm gonna fuck you up.
Now we're at the halfway point here on the list, and coming in at number 5 is Nobody. As I've mentioned before in this list, I love creativity, I love originality in all genres, but especially in action. I love it when they'll take somebody who you don't look at and would ever think of being like an action star, and they put them in a film and just make them look absolutely badass, and that's what we get in this film, Nobody. A seemingly normal bloke who turns out to be anything but, and just to see this rise in this character, this thing is suppressed for all these years, rising to the surface, and just, it's a really, really brilliant action film, wonderfully acted, and great choreography throughout. So yeah, it was one of the highlights of the year when it came out.
Your life will always matter more to me than my own.
Now, coming in at number 4, there has to be a Mission Impossible film on here somewhere, and because this one is the most recent one, it's on here, a Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I've seen some negativity towards this one. I don't think everybody's in love with it, and it didn't do as well obviously at the box office that I personally think it should have done, but I absolutely loved it. I was thrilled with this film. I think ever since Ghost Protocol, the Mission Impossible films just keep trying to better themselves. The stunts are out of this world, the action's out of this world. Tom Cruise knows how to deliver these type of movies, these event movies, and this film is absolutely no exception.
Are you always this brave? I'm not brave. You rescue people. Sometimes.
We are getting to the heavy hitters now, and coming in at number 3 is Extraction, the Netflix spectacular that came out in 2020. Chris Hemsworth, who created this new action icon, if you like. We've had Extraction 2 since, and that was superb as well. Absolutely fantastic film. But the first one for me is just so, I don't know. It's hard to describe just how good this film is. I mean, it's made by people that know what they're doing, obviously, you know, and we're discovering, I think, with people who are kind of ex-stuntmen, that sort of thing, and they're making these action films, they know exactly what they're doing, and everything is just superbly choreographed and put together. And this film is no exception. It's gritty, it's grounded, it's brutal. I mean, this poor character that Chris Hemsworth plays in this film gets absolutely kicked from pillar to post, but he just keeps coming back and back, and you know, and he's protecting his, you know, this poor kid that he's trying to get out of India with all these rival factions trying to get this kid. It's just intense, it's non-stop, and there's a superb fight sequence between Chris Hemsworth and David Harbour as well, thrown in for good measure. Definitely worth checking out. If you've never seen Extraction, don't forget there's the sequel as well. You need to definitely watch them both.
Captain Pete Maverick Mitchell. Let me be perfectly blunt. You are not my first choice. You are here at the request of Admiral Kazansky, aka Iceman. He seems to think that you have something left to offer the Navy. What that is, I can't imagine.
With all due respect, sir, I'm not a teacher. Just want to manage expectations.
Now, coming in at number 2 on the list, and this one probably surprises me more than anybody, it's Top Gun Maverick. And the reason why this one surprises me is I was quite late to the party with this one. When it first came out at the cinemas, and even though it was getting superb reviews and, you know, doing gangbusters at the box office, wasn't in a rush to see it. And the main reason for that is I'm not overly keen on the first one. I think it's over the top nonsense, but I was kept hearing so many good things about it. I finally decided to watch this one, and it blew me away. It was just, as the description of perfect sequel is exactly what this film is. It is the perfect sequel. It's charming, it's fun, the plane sequences are just out of this world, they're jaw-droppingly good, and it's got a really intense action-packed finale. Yeah, it's an absolutely wonderful film, and I'm absolutely delighted that I did manage to get around to seeing it eventually.
I want you to find your peace. But the good death only comes after a good life. You and I left a good life behind a long time ago, my friend.
But for me, number 1 has to be John Wick Chapter 4. It's just a staggeringly made action film. I mean, I was trying to convince myself when I was putting this list together, thinking, well, I can't put John Wick at number 1 again, because I've just put him at number 1 of my favourite films of this year. But what I realise it's hypocritical not to, because it is just so superbly made. I can't really say much more about this film that I haven't said already in my review and on my top 10 favourite films of the year. If you've seen the film, you know what I mean. It's just flawless in regards to the action that it puts together. Does it feel different than the first film? You know, John Wick that we got was, you know, obviously a superbly made film, but when you get to number 4 and you compare it to number 1, yeah, they do feel like different worlds almost now. But it doesn't change the fact that it's just an incredible achievement in regards to action cinema, and an incredible physical performance, obviously, by Keanu Reeves. So that is why it is at my number 1 for my favourite action film of the decade so far. So obviously, guys, thanks for joining me. Let me know in the comment section what your favourite action films of this decade is so far. Let me know of other genres that you want me to do this for as well. I'm thinking about doing it maybe for sci-fi, maybe for superhero movies of the decade so far, something like that. Let me know in the comments, guys. Maybe even comedies, whatever. Let me know and I will think about doing them, because I'm quite enjoying doing these top 10 lists now. So I'll see you soon.